Before President Trump bulldozed a third of the White House last week, he had already paved over one of its most beautiful and iconic places, the White House Rose Garden. This summer, President Trump poured concrete over the Rose Garden at the White House in order to create this, what he calls the Rose Garden Club. It's basically a fast food restaurant patio. Cost nearly $2 million. And then the excavator showed up. Last week, in tearing down the historic East Wing of the White House, Trump destroyed not just the East Wing, but also a second historic garden, the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden.
Okay, so this is absolutely wild. House Speaker Mike Johnson, better known as MAGA Mike, is in the middle of a complete political meltdown. And honestly, it's getting worse by the day. We're talking about a series of disastrous press blunders, all linked to Donald Trump, that have sent Republican leadership into a total spiral. Johnson has been trying desperately to defend Trump's most controversial and frankly insane actions, and every single time he opens his mouth, it gets worse. We're talking about defending vulgar AI-generated videos, bot shutdown messaging, the Epstein files scandal, all of it. And the result? Public rebukes from his own party members, brutal media coverage, and polling numbers that show Americans are increasingly blaming Republicans for the dysfunction in Washington. This is a party in crisis, and Mike Johnson is standing right at the center of the implosion, watching his leadership crumble in real time. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Into the Mellon family's industrial and banking fortune. Through her friendship with the Kennedys, she ended up designing both the White House Rose Garden, which Trump paved, and the absolutely lovely Jackie Kennedy Garden with its magnolias and its slow-growing, painstakingly cultivated hollies.
Let me set the scene for you. Midas Touch captured Johnson on October 21st, literally losing it on live television. The shutdown drama was unraveling. Trump's attempts to deflect blame were falling apart, and Johnson was getting absolutely grilled during a press conference about his shutdown strategy, his complete lack of control over his own caucus, and his refusal to restore normal House business. The viral clips from that presser show a man who's rattled, who's defensive, who cannot coherently defend the MAGA positions he's committed himself to. He's stumbling over his words, he's dodging questions, he's visibly frustrated, and the whole world is watching him fall apart on camera. Can you believe this? The Speaker of the House, third in line to the presidency, melting down on live TV because he can't handle basic questions about why his party is shutting down the government and causing chaos. But wait, it gets even more ridiculous. Yahoo News reported on October 20th that Johnson actually went on television to defend Trump's vulgar AI-generated video attacking No Kings protesters. Yeah, you heard that right. Trump posted some disgusting AI video targeting peaceful protesters, and Johnson's response was to go on TV and claim these peaceful activists pose a violent threat. He embraced Trump's absurd social media tactics. He defended the indefensible. In the result, he got absolutely ridiculed by everyone, from late-night hosts to serious political analysts. Even some Republicans were quietly shaking their heads, wondering what on earth Johnson was thinking. Defending a vulgar AI video? That's where we are now? That's the hill MAGA Mike has chosen to die on? Raw Story and The Hill have been documenting this disaster from October 22nd through the 25th, and the picture they paint is absolutely brutal. Johnson has refused to seat Democrat Adelita Grijalva, creating a massive constitutional crisis and terrible optics for Republicans. His persistent shutdown tactics have backfired spectacularly, creating nightmare scenarios for GOP messaging heading into midterm season. Party divides are getting worse, not better. Republican leverage in negotiations has evaporated because nobody takes Johnson seriously anymore. He's undermined his own party's position through sheer incompetence and blind loyalty to Trump. And GOP strategists are panicking because they know this is going to hurt them at the ballot box. Voters don't like dysfunction. Voters don't like chaos. Voters don't like watching the House Speaker defend vulgar videos and shut down the government while real problems go unsolved. Players Unlimited and Yahoo News captured something even more damning on October 25th and October 11th. Johnson faced live public scoldings from furious voters and even from his own colleagues. GOP insiders are now openly warning that he could face a mutiny over his handling of Trump-linked disasters like the Epstein files vote. Think about that for a second. His own party members are talking about removing him from the speakership. Voters are screaming at him at public events. Colleagues are criticizing him on the record. This isn't just bad press, this is a full-blown leadership crisis. When your own team is turning on you, when voters are confronting you in public, when insiders are whispering about removing you from power, you're not just having a bad week. You're watching your political career implode in real time. And the craziest part? All of this is because Johnson has tied himself so completely to Trump that he can't separate his own leadership from Trump's chaos. Every Trump blunder becomes Johnson's problem. Every Trump scandal requires Johnson to go on TV and defend it. Every Trump social media post creates a new crisis that Johnson has to manage. He's become Trump's spokesperson, Trump's shield, Trump's attack dog. And in the process, he's destroyed his own credibility and his own effectiveness as speaker. The MAGA movement that elevated him to power is now dragging him down into the mud. Republicans are openly discussing whether they made a massive mistake choosing Johnson as speaker, and Democrats are just sitting back with popcorn watching the GOP tear itself apart from the inside. This is an absolute disaster, and we're going to break down exactly how it all went so horribly wrong. Alright, let's dig into the specific disasters that are destroying Mike Johnson's speakership, because each one of these incidents is jaw-dropping on its own, but together they paint a picture of total political incompetence. First, the October 21st meltdown on live television. Midas Touch captured footage that went absolutely viral, showing Johnson at a press conference getting hammered with questions about the government shutdown. And here's the thing, these weren't gotcha questions, these were basic, legitimate questions that any speaker should be able to answer. Why is the House shut down? What's your strategy for reopening? Why won't you allow votes on bills that have bipartisan support? How do you respond to polling showing Americans blame Republicans for this dysfunction? Standard stuff, but Johnson couldn't handle it. He got defensive. He got flustered. He started rambling about Democrat obstruction and media bias instead of actually answering the questions, and the cameras caught all of it. His body language screamed panic, his answers were incoherent, and within hours, the clips were everywhere, being mocked and analyzed and used as evidence that MAGA Mike is completely out of his depth as speaker. The shutdown itself is a perfect example of Johnson's failed leadership. He doesn't have control of his own caucus. The far-right MAGA members are demanding things that moderate Republicans won't support. The moderates want compromise that the MAGA wing calls betrayal, and Johnson is stuck in the middle, unable to unite his party or negotiate with Democrats. So instead of actually leading, he's just let the government shut down, hoping somehow the political pressure will fall on Democrats instead of Republicans. Spoiler alert, it hasn't worked. Every poll shows Americans blame Republicans more than Democrats for the shutdown. Every news story talks about GOP dysfunction and chaos. Every day the shutdown continues is another day of bad headlines for Johnson and his party. And when reporters asked him about this at that October 21st presser, he had no good answers. Just deflection, blame shifting, and visible frustration that his strategy has completely failed. Now let's talk about the AI video disaster, because this might be the most embarrassing incident of all. Trump posted a vulgar AI-generated video attacking No Kings protesters. These are peaceful activists who oppose certain executive power expansions. They're not violent, they're not dangerous, they're just citizens exercising their First Amendment rights. But Trump, being Trump, created some disgusting AI deepfake video portraying them as threats and posted it on social media. Any reasonable politician would have either stayed silent or gently distanced themselves from that kind of garbage. But not Mike Johnson. Oh no. According to Yahoo News reporting from October 20th, Johnson went on television and actually defended the video. He claimed the peaceful protesters posed a violent threat. He embraced Trump's absurd social media tactics. He legitimized the use of AI-generated propaganda to smear political opponents. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Media outlets fact-checked his claims and found them completely false. The protesters were peaceful. There was no violence. Johnson had lied on national television to defend Trump's disgusting video, and he got absolutely destroyed for it. Think about what this says about Johnson's judgment and priorities. He's the Speaker of the House. He's supposed to be a serious legislative leader, and he's going on TV to defend vulgar AI deepfake videos. He's lying about peaceful protesters being violent. That's not leadership. That's being Trump's lapdog. That's sacrificing your own credibility and dignity to defend the indefensible. And for what? Trump's not going to reward that loyalty. Trump's going to demand more and more outrageous defenses every time he does something crazy. Johnson has set a precedent that there's nothing Trump can do that's too extreme for Johnson to defend, and now he's stuck. He can't back down without looking weak. He can't keep defending this stuff without looking ridiculous. He's painted himself into a corner, and there's no good way out. The Adelita Grijalva situation is another unforced error that's making Johnson look terrible. Raw Story and The Hill documented how Johnson has refused to seat Democrat Adelita Grijalva despite her winning her election. This is unprecedented. This is a constitutional crisis. Members of Congress who win their elections get seated. That's how democracy works. But Johnson is blocking it, apparently at the behest of Trump and the MAGA wing, who don't want to lose any leverage in the narrowly divided House. The problem? This makes Republicans look like they don't respect democracy. It makes Johnson look like a partisan hack who's willing to violate basic democratic norms. And it's given Democrats an easy talking point. Republicans are so desperate to cling to power that they won't even let duly elected representatives take their seats. That's not a good look heading into midterm elections. That's not the kind of story Republicans want dominating the news cycle. But Johnson did it anyway because Trump wanted him to. And now it's another scandal added to the growing pile of Johnson's failures. The shutdown tactics have been an absolute disaster from a messaging perspective. Johnson thought he could shut down the government and blame Democrats. He thought voters would be angry at Biden and congressional Democrats for not giving Republicans what they want. But that's not what happened. Instead, voters see Republicans as the ones causing dysfunction. They see Johnson as unable to lead his own party. They see Trump pulling strings behind the scenes, demanding more extreme positions that make compromise impossible. And they blame the GOP for the chaos. The polling is clear on this. Americans don't like government shutdowns. They don't like political games. They don't like watching their elected representatives act like children. And right now, Republicans are the ones looking like children. Johnson's shutdown strategy has undermined Republican leverage in every negotiation. Why would Democrats compromise when they're winning the PR battle? Why would they give Republicans what they want when polling shows voters blame Republicans for the problem? Johnson miscalculated badly, and now his party is paying the price. The Epstein files vote is yet another disaster that Johnson has completely mishandled. It was a push to release more information about Jeffrey Epstein's connections to powerful people. It's an issue that actually has bipartisan support among voters. People want transparency. They want to know the truth. But Johnson, reportedly under pressure from Trump and others who might be implicated in those files, has blocked votes on the issue. He's prevented the House from even debating it. And when confronted about this in public, he's gotten defensive and evasive. Players Unlimited captured footage of voters confronting Johnson about the Epstein files, demanding to know why he won't allow a vote. His responses have been weak and unconvincing. He talks about process and procedure instead of addressing the substance. He deflects to other issues instead of explaining his position. And voters aren't buying it. They see him as protecting powerful people who might be exposed by those files. They see him as putting Trump's interests above the public's right to know, and they're angry about it. GOP insiders are now openly discussing a potential mutiny against Johnson's leadership. That's how bad things have gotten. Members of his own party are talking about removing him as speaker. Some are doing it quietly in private conversations. Others are being more public, giving quotes to reporters about their concerns with Johnson's leadership. The reasons are obvious. He can't control his caucus. He can't win messaging battles. He can't navigate scandals without making them worse. He's tied himself so completely to Trump that every Trump disaster becomes his disaster, and Republicans are starting to wonder if they made a huge mistake elevating him to speaker. The problem is, there's no obvious replacement. Anyone who tries to take Johnson's place will face the same impossible task of managing the MAGA wing while also trying to govern responsibly. But that's not stopping the whispers and the plotting. Johnson's position is increasingly precarious, and everyone in Washington knows it. So what does all of this mean for the Republican Party going forward? Let's break down the implications, because this isn't just about Mike Johnson's personal political problems. This is about the entire GOP being thrown into chaos because they can't escape Trump's gravitational pull. First, the leadership vacuum. Johnson has proven he can't lead effectively. He can't unite his caucus. He can't win political battles. He can't manage crises without making them worse. But Republicans are stuck with him because there's no clear alternative. Anyone who challenges Johnson risks dividing the party even further. Anyone who takes his place will inherit the same impossible situation: a narrow majority, a fractured caucus, and a former president who demands absolute loyalty while creating constant chaos. So Republicans are trapped with ineffective leadership, and that's going to hurt them at every level as we head toward the midterms. Second, the Trump problem. Johnson's implosion perfectly illustrates the fundamental dilemma facing every Republican leader right now. If you defend Trump, you end up defending indefensible things like vulgar AI videos and conspiracy theories. If you criticize Trump, his base turns on you and you lose your position. Johnson chose to defend Trump at every turn, and look where it got him: publicly humiliated, losing support from his own party, facing potential removal from the speakership. But what was his alternative? If he had distanced himself from Trump, the MAGA wing would have revolted and removed him anyway. He was damned either way, and that's the situation every Republican leader finds themselves in. Trump controls the base, but Trump's behavior is often politically toxic. Following Trump leads to disaster, but opposing Trump leads to political death. It's an impossible position, and Johnson's meltdown is what happens when a leader tries to thread that needle and fails. Third, the midterm implications. Every single one of these scandals and blunders is going to show up in campaign ads. Democrats are going to run footage of Johnson melting down at press conferences. They're going to remind voters about the government shutdown and who was responsible. They're going to highlight Johnson defending Trump's vulgar videos. They're going to talk about the refusal to seat Adelita Grijalva and what that says about Republicans' respect for democracy. They're going to use the Epstein files issue to suggest Republicans are protecting powerful predators. All of this becomes campaign material that Democrats will use to paint Republicans as chaotic, dysfunctional, and unfit to govern. And it's going to work with swing voters. The people who decide elections don't want chaos. They don't want dysfunction. They don't want leaders who melt down on live TV and defend indefensible things. Johnson has given Democrats a gift, and they're going to use it ruthlessly. Fourth, the party fracture that's becoming impossible to hide. The MAGA wing wants one thing, the establishment wing wants something else, and the moderates are caught in the middle trying to survive in purple districts. Johnson was supposed to be the guy who could bridge these factions. He was picked as speaker specifically because he seemed acceptable to all sides, but he's failed at that fundamental task. The fractures are worse now than when he took over. MAGA members are angry that he hasn't been extreme enough. Moderates are terrified that his Trump loyalty is going to cost them their seats. Establishment figures are frustrated that he can't execute basic legislative strategy. The party is eating itself alive, and Johnson's leadership has accelerated the process rather than slowing it down. When your party can't agree on basic strategy or messaging, when different factions are openly at war with each other, you can't govern effectively, and voters notice. They see the chaos and conclude that Republicans aren't ready to be trusted with power. Fifth, the media narrative that's now set in stone. Johnson is MAGA Mike, the speaker who can't lead, the guy who melts down on camera and defends Trump's worst impulses. That's his brand now. That's how he'll be portrayed in every news story and every analysis piece. Once that narrative is established, it's almost impossible to change. Every future incident will be filtered through that lens. Every press conference will be watched for signs of another meltdown. Every statement will be analyzed for evidence of Trump loyalty, overriding good judgment. Johnson has become a punchline, and that's devastating for someone in his position. The Speaker of the House needs to project authority and competence. Johnson projects neither, and the media narrative reflects that reality. 6. The voter anger that's becoming impossible to ignore. The footage of voters confronting Johnson in public, demanding answers about the Epstein files and other issues, that's not normal. Speakers don't usually face that kind of public hostility, but Johnson has made himself such a lightning rod for controversy that people are actively seeking him out to express their anger. And it's not just Democrats. Some of the people confronting him are Republican voters who feel betrayed by his leadership and his choices. When you've lost the confidence of your own base, when your own voters are screaming at you in public, your political position is incredibly weak. Johnson's relationship with voters has deteriorated to the point where he can't even do public events without facing hostile confrontations. That's a sign of a political career in serious trouble. And finally, the Trump shadow that Johnson can't escape. Every decision Johnson makes is viewed through the lens of Trump loyalty. Every position he takes is analyzed for how it helps or hurts Trump. He's not his own leader. He's Trump's representative in the House. And that diminishes him. It makes him look weak and subservient. It prevents him from building his own independent political identity or power base. Johnson sold his soul for Trump's endorsement and support, and now he's discovering the price of that bargain. He's Trump's puppet, and everyone knows it. And when Trump eventually turns on him, because Trump always turns on people eventually, Johnson will be left with nothing. No independent base of support, no reputation for principled leadership, no legacy beyond being the guy who defended vulgar AI videos and melted down on live TV. So where does this leave the Republican Party? In complete chaos, with ineffective leadership, with a fractured caucus that can't agree on anything, with a Trump problem that nobody knows how to solve, with polling that shows voters blame them for dysfunction, and with midterm elections approaching fast. MAGA Mike's implosion isn't just one man's failure. It's a symptom of a party that's lost its way, sacrificed its principles for one man's ego, and is now paying the price. The GOP is imploding, and we're all watching it happen in real time. Stay tuned, because this disaster is far from over, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets any better.